Would you like a sound check? All good to go. Yeah, Megan Scanlon, Minister for the Environment, Great Barrier Reef, Science and Youth Affairs. All good? Excellent. Yeah, well, that's part of my portfolio, yeah. Well, wonderful to be in Yatala on the Northern Gold Coast today, and I'm here with Chris, the General Manager of Phoenix Power Recycling at their amazing facility here. In fact, it's one of a kind really in this state and in the country, and we're really proud to have it on the Northern Gold Coast. As people would know, food waste is a massive issue in this country and in fact across the world. We know that food waste accounts for about 8% of the world's global greenhouse gas emissions. We also know that it's costing households around $2,200 a year in good food that's going to landfill at the moment. And what we can see through analysis is that about half of your household general waste bin is made up of food and garden organics. We want to change that. We've set some pretty ambitious targets. We want to halve the amount of food waste that's generated in the first place, but for that food waste that does go into the bin, we want to divert 80% of it away from landfill. And so to do that, we need to have composting facilities like this one. We also need councils across Queensland to deliver these new services, because ultimately it's going to be better for our environment, but it's also going to create a whole lot of jobs in the process. And today I'm really pleased to be here to announce the Queensland and federal government are both investing $2 million to increase the capacity of this particular facility. This includes funding to deliver 4 new in-vessel composting facilities, which will mean that they can take even more food waste here, which is really important. As I said, we want to roll out these food and garden organic services across the state. We're working with councils, and that means that we need these industrial scale composting facilities to be able to take that waste and turn it into good soil at the end. So I might hand over now to Chris and then take questions. Is that all
right? Chris Alexander, General Manager, Phoenix Power Recyclers.
Chris, maybe ask the questions to lead you in. Yeah, so can you explain, I guess, the significance of this investment?
So moving to FOGO, Food Organic, Garden Organic, the facility is designed for complete emissions odour control, which is actually quite capital expensive, capital rich, intensive to develop. For us, this type of waste stream does come with contaminants, and this investment allows us to put sophisticated best practice decontamination process, which ultimately allows us to create a high quality soil conditioner composting medium.
I guess this is now showing what's going to be happening, that the process does work and it works well, and that's, I guess, why we're sort of looking to now to expand those operations.
That's correct. We've been commissioned nearly 3 years now, and we've been through quite a lot of research and development. It wasn't just a case of switch it on and it'll go okay. There's been a number of things we've had to refine in terms of the process, and there's a variability in the waste stream that comes here and that we have to treat.
What's the value like in terms of food waste ordinarily go to waste into another product like compost? Where does it go?
Well, the value, firstly, is to divert it from a landfill into a lower emission process. Secondly, to create a soil conditioner or a compost. It currently goes into the market. It's used in landscape soils. Some of it does go to agriculture. But I have to say the investment is about cleaning the product and decontaminating it, allowing us to penetrate the market, specifically the agricultural market, who wouldn't want those type of contaminations.
I guess that's something that we pride ourselves on here, particularly in Australia, is our strong agricultural, sense. Is this, just adding, like you said, that extra quality to it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's adding quality, managing perception of what is in it, but also allowing us to achieve a high quality material. We're embarking on diverting food, and it will come with packaging. There will be packaging, and we need to remove some of that packaging. You can see that in the stockpile of medium behind me.
If you look nationally, there seems to be a lot of councils, state governments that are going towards trying to find a way to recycle and reuse green waste. What's it like here in Queensland, the industry and growth for it?
That's a good question. The different states in Australia are at different stages of this process. It's a huge cultural change for people when you change their behaviours in terms of how they separate waste. Queensland is to my mind, at the beginning of this process, separating food, not putting it in one bin, persuading them of the benefits, and that's all of us here, persuading us of the benefits to put food waste in a different bin. Why bother? Why do it? So you've got to communicate that benefit to everyone in order to make it work.
Just probably one more for me in terms, I guess, just the scope of this. Sort of how much, I guess, do you, or how much waste do you guys sort of process perhaps on a weekly or a monthly, yearly basis? And I guess sort of where does it fit in with this new system?
Okay, at the moment we process around 700 tonnes. That's not all made up of food waste, that is also shredded green waste. With the investment, it would allow us to put more food waste through that process.
Anything else you want to add? We haven't asked?
Anything to add? No, I'd just like to thank the government for allowing us to provide funding grant schemes and allow us to bid for them. They're important.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
Thank you. And I might just add to that, this is a $2 million investment, but we have a $1.1 billion recycling and jobs fund. We have that fund because we brought back the waste levy. We changed the levers in the waste system to try and divert waste away from landfill and to ideally reduce, reuse and recycle and create a whole lot of new job opportunities in the process. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So what we're doing is we're already doing 3 trials at the moment in Lockyer Valley, in Townsville and Rockhampton to try and make sure that we get all of the components of rolling out FOGO done right. It's not just rolling out the bin and having the composting facility, it's also about behaviour change campaigns. And so it's really important that we test that and make sure we get it absolutely right. But we've set some pretty ambitious targets, as I said, and we'll also be supporting councils across the state with that investment to roll out bins to make sure we have these commercial facilities available. I'm hoping that we'll see a number of councils sort of in mid-2023 roll out these FOGO services to households. And then, of course, we've got some pretty ambitious targets. By 2025, we want 65% of households to have access to these services as well. So it's a significant amount of investment, but it's the right way to go to try and reduce emissions, protect our environment and create a whole lot of economic opportunities as well.
Is that, I guess, is that sort of your role in the scheme to take up to build it and that will come? It seems like you're sort of putting the investment in and hope that these councils will follow suit.
Yeah, we've got that $1.1 billion investment there. We're also working with councils on regional waste plans because we acknowledge that, a population size like South East Queensland is quite different to, for example, North Queensland. And so we need to make place-based solutions. We also make sure the investment is actually going where it needs to. While grant processes are wonderful and we want to continue them, we want to make sure that investment is going into the right areas when we need them at those critical times. And so what those regional plans are doing, we have both industry, council, government at the table, looking at where the holes in the system are and then where we can plug in that investment. Thanks. Yeah.
Yep.
Offenders to do those criminal acts in the first place, but pretty brazen to put it on social media and actually fairly silly because that's evidence that can be used in the court of law as well. When it comes to the Youth Justice Act, of course, we've made significant reforms. We've brought in the presumption against bail for particularly those repeat juvenile offenders. Overall, we have seen a reduction in the amount of juveniles offending, in fact, a 30% reduction in the amount of young people offending, but we know there's still that hardcore group and that's who we're targeting. I'd have to get those figures for you, but of course we continue to do a lot of work in that system, changing the laws, so there's obviously quite severe punishment in place for individuals who do break the law, but also working at the other end. How can we intervene in a heavy case management way to try and stop these people from offending in the first place? Some of these young people, we've got to realise, have got pretty traumatic and difficult backgrounds, and so we want to try and intervene early to stop them from offending. It's better for them and it's better for the community. It's statewide 30% reduction in overall number of juvenile offenders. Yeah, look, I'd have to get that detail. You've also got to factor in as well population growth with some of that, but I'm happy to get you that detail.
Two teens accused of stabbing another teen being Beaumont and Redcliffe will be sentenced next week. Do you think the current penalties for teenagers are enough? Serious crime like this?
Yeah, look, there are serious penalties in place for both juveniles and adults who commit offences. Obviously, we continue to review all of our acts to make sure they're fit for purpose, but it's inappropriate for me to comment, obviously, on any individual matters.
I guess the comment that's always put out is that it's, things are too soft, penalties are too soft, and too many young offenders get slapped and the rest get sent back on their way.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair assumption. I mean, how is the government really trying to
Well, we're trying to do everything we can. As I said, we brought in some of the strongest measures in Queensland's history and in fact across the country when it comes to tackling some of the issues of juvenile offending. We've changed the presumption against bail to stop these individuals from even getting bail in the first place. We'll continue to look at the evidence and make sure that we're making informed decisions when we make any changes. And, you know, I absolutely accept that the community rightfully has an expectation that if someone does the wrong thing, that they will be punished. Excellent. Yep. Yep.
I guess just generally, in terms of, we've been speaking to a lot of people who are finding it very difficult, particularly with the rental market at the moment.
Yeah.
Cars, tents,
Yep.
that sort of stuff.
Yep.
A lot of people are calling for social housing. Is this something the government is working towards, or what are the solutions that have been raised?
Yeah, we have the largest investment in social and affordable housing in Queensland's history at the moment. Now, like with many people at the moment, there are challenges when it comes to the labour shortage issues, when it comes to supply chain. So we're working through that and building houses as quickly as possible. In my electorate in Nerang, I know what we've done is demolish 2 older social housing big houses and replace that with a number of smaller unit dwellings. We're looking at all solutions available. Of course, the Deputy Premier recently announced those changes to granny flats. The Premier has announced a housing summit. We want to look at all options available to try and make it easier, particularly for vulnerable Queenslanders who are doing it tough. We do need to acknowledge, though, that some of these measures aren't all the responsibility of state governments. We need all levels of government to be working together, and so I encourage investment and reform also at a federal and council level.
Just because opening up, we always talk about, land is
Yeah.
another way to get to housing, but
Yeah.
what's the unique situation, particularly here in the southeast? I mean, I've been here for too long, but I'd say there's really not much elsewhere to go apart.
Well, look, there are obviously challenges in areas where we have already seen quite a lot of sprawl to the extent where may be possible. We are still doing some work to look at where there are sites available and making sure that they're purpose-built and really delivering the maximum benefit in terms of the amount of dwellings available. We are obviously continuing to look at infill as well, and that's a responsibility of councils. We need to look at everything, frankly. We accept that there is pressures at the moment on the housing market, and we need to do everything possible to try and reduce the pressures, particularly on those vulnerable Queenslanders.
Just a final one, and forgive me if you can't comment directly on it. In terms of just finding a rental, we know rental prices are skyrocketing just because
Yep.
there's simply not enough supply out there. There's a lot
Yep.
of supply.
Yep.
Is there something, that can be done from the state government's perspective to help alleviate these pressures for those looking for it apart from social housing? Is there anything else that can be done?
Yeah, look, I know it's challenging for a lot of renters at the moment. I've got a lot of friends who rent, and I know, it costs money also to move multiple times. The cost of getting, removal trucks and all of those things add up. We're looking at every possible option available. We provide funding to help people sometimes when they might need assistance in that financial support to move. We also provide obviously we also provide funding to help people who might not be able to maintain private tenancy. They might not really need public housing, but they might just need us to fill in that extra gap. We do that as well. We have a whole suite of financial opportunities available to people to try and make sure they keep a roof over their head. But again, this is really complex. We're seeing a huge amount of interstate migration. We've seen houses that have been impacted by natural disaster. We're at a really, we're at a crunch point at the moment where there are a lot of pressures, and we are doing everything we can to try and make sure that people have a safe place to call home. Excellent. All good? Excellent. Thank you.